everyone out there, welcome to the Hoops Lounge. We have a big show on tap for you this week at the first and the main episode. So our first quarter, for those of you who don't know, it's a 12-minute segment on our main topic. So this one is going to be the Beasts of the East, general conversation of what's going down in the Eastern Conference. Some guys are slipping, some guys are rising, so we're going to take a look at all of that. On top of that, we have Mark's Naismith moment, which is going to talk on the New York Knickerbockers. And then we have our In the Post segment where Mota and I, as always, battle it out for Hoops glory. And then we're going to have, yes, Mota, and then we're going to have our wrap-up where we're going to have a little bit of FIBA 3-on-3 updates and lots more to tell you what's coming up here on hoopslounge.com. So to kick it off, we're talking about the Beasts of the East. So we're talking about the teams that are making big splashes, and some teams that are supposed to be making splashes aren't making them as much. So, as always, our three hosts, myself, Mr. Phil, Sporting Phil, and my first co-host, Mr. Mark.
Hey, everybody, it's March Madness, and I have the Syracuse Blues.
And the third host, Mr. Mota.
Hey, what's up, guys? It took LeBron 8 years to win a ring, but it took me 8 weeks in Switzerland to win a ring. 3-on-3 basketball, represent.
So maybe LeBron should take his talents too.
Oh, jeez.
Maybe we should trade with him. It's okay.
I don't know if you would do that. So guys, we're talking about the Beast in the East. We're talking about the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Normally, these teams, these conversations, it's kind of top heavy. We're talking about Miami. We're talking about Indiana, and then we get a lot of guys kind of straggling down. But it seems to me that the top guys like Indiana and Miami have been struggling. And some guys that we don't talk about as much, like the Nets, like the Bulls, and the Raptors are making some headway. Mark, I'll let you handle the first part of that bit. When we're talking about those top teams with Indiana and Miami, what's wrong with these guys?
Well, I mean, you got to talk, Phil. You coined the expression, the Bynum effect. The dark cloud following Andrew Bynum wherever he goes. I mentioned about a month ago on the show that Larry Bird signed this man without giving him a physical. And now he's out indefinitely with all this crazy swelling in his knee and pus and everything else. So Larry Legend making a bad chess move. And, I don't know. Both that team, Miami has lost 7 of the last 11 games.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of question marks with both those franchises right now, and so you got teams like Toronto and New Jersey, and I think that what's happening with the Knicks is kind of fool's gold, to be honest. But I think New Jersey's playing great ball, Chicago's playing pretty good ball, and Toronto, despite the Kevin Durant double overtime, just nail in the heart of the Raptors at the ACC the other night. The Raptors are playing really good ball right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's good that you mentioned it. The Brooklyn Nets are really playing extremely well lately. Well, I'm not going to say extremely well because, let's face it, we're talking about the East this year. It's not the best conference of even in any sport. So the Brooklyn Nets are a little bit slow. They're getting back into shape. They're clicking. They're playing. I think they're getting ready for the playoffs. They're number 5 seed right now. So we'll have to see. But when you look at Miami and Indiana, the problem is not their top guys. The problem is actually their big men. Roy Hibbert, the other day, he was putting up some people were saying, yeah, Roy Hibbert is going to be in the Hall of Fame. But Roy Hibbert put a not awesome numbers for a guy who's going to be recognized to be in the Hall of Fame. 4 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists. And 7 turnovers.
So that was like a Dwight Howard game this year.
Exactly. So I think they got into a really good rhythm at the beginning, and now they're just slacking off, or they're just losing a little bit their energy, or maybe the coaches are telling them to just take it easy to get ready for the playoffs. So we'll have to see. I mean.
Or do you think it's possibly they're missing Danny Granger in that locker room? Do you think that's something that should be put into this conversation, or do you just think they're in cruise mode?
I think they're just in cruise mode. Danny Granger as much as I like Danny Granger, I don't see him as the leader of that team. I never saw him as the leader of that team. So I don't think he had that much effect in the locker room. They have so many other guys that have so much experience. like George Hill and even Roy Hibbert. He's the guy who talks the most, and Paul George too. So there's no one leader, and I don't think it's the Danny Granger effect, but I think it's also, I will come back to you and I'll give you props to that because it's very, very true. It's the Andrew Bynum effect.
Nice. And now to speak of some positive things, Mark, obviously we're talking about a couple teams that are sliding. We've spoken about the Nets. Now our Toronto Raptors, last time I checked, we're quite a few games over 500, which is, even though the East isn't that great, they're getting a lot of press in nationally televised games, even the games they're not playing in. We're hearing more and more about the Raptors. What impresses you about the Raptors this year, and what do you think made the difference between our team last year and our team this year?
Well, I mean, yeah, Steve Kerr gave them props the other day on national TV, and they were the fan game of the night on NBA TV in the U.S. against Atlanta. I didn't get to mention this, but I got to sit courtside with our friend Dwight Walton. My friend Vinay hooked us up to see the Raptors versus Golden State, and that was one of the best quote-unquote experiences of my life. It was just amazing to see these thoroughbred athletes there 5 feet away from me, literally. And I see the confidence in these guys' eyes. I'll give you a little story. So that Golden State is one of the premier teams in this league and on this planet. And so it was a tight game throughout, and DeMar DeRozan hit a clutch jumper with I think about a minute left, and then he came down the court, and the ball was I was sitting near courtside, near half court, and the ball went out of bounds. So he was guarding the inbounds pass coming in, and so I'm sitting there, and I look up, and DeMar just has this kind of furious anger look, and he's got these like crystal green eyes, and I'm just, oh my god, like he's like a serial killer right now, and just extreme. He scared the crap out of me, and he just has this extreme confidence, and the whole team has that, from Kyle Lowry down to, and it comes from Ujiri, it comes from what I hate to say it, Dwayne Casey's been preaching great defense. They're clicking right now, despite the injuries. Patterson's out. That's a big loss. JV's had back issues, but the confidence, the gelling offensively and defensively is just coming together for him at a great time.
Yeah, their big men are playing really well. I mean, Amir Johnson and
Amir's playing great.
It's very impressive how they're actually playing the pick and roll, which we were trying to tell them for the past 2 years to play the pick and roll on JV and Amir Johnson, but they just decide their guards are not willing to pass the ball to these big guys. And they are talented big guys. They're not the type of big men that you just slow down the game. They actually can run, they can pass, they can do everything. And now they're realizing, okay, we need to pass the ball to JV and Amir Johnson a little bit more because they're the ones who can actually get banged up and down under the basket and actually score. So yeah, props to Dwayne Casey, even though I'm not his biggest fan on preaching defense, but yeah, it's true. I'll give that to you, Mark.
Griffin Vasquez, you got to mention his name. He's really stepped up the last month.
That's true.
Yeah, and I think honestly, to your point, I think that makes a lot of sense. That I think they've gotten some of their spark from the fact that the big men are involved, because when you look at the Raptors and where the majority of their points lie, it's a very wing heavy team. We're talking about Ross, DeRozan, Vasquez, Lowry, and then your big men are, if you didn't watch the Raptors a lot, you would think they're mainly there for defense, for rebounding, for outlet passing, to get the guards involved. But the fact that they are scoring here and there, maybe not in the high marks. Now, I think, Mark, you mentioning Patrick Patterson being out, I think that is a big loss. He is able to stretch the floor and score in that front position. But Mota, I want to ask you, because I've been going back and forth in my mind with this. Who do you think, if you had to put it on one, is the biggest reason they've made this jump? DeMar DeRozan's play from being a good player to a star, or Kyle Lowry just putting it all together? Because they both have a lot going for them, and they both brought a lot. But if you really, have to make that clutch decision, who do you think's been the biggest difference maker this year?
Hands down, Kyle Lowry.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy who has been putting up the numbers in clutch time. He's the guy who brought the team together. He's the guy who he's their point guard. The ball starts with him, and if he's the one who organizes and orchestrates everything for the team. So I guess if I have to choose between both of them, I will go with Kyle Lowry just because of the amazing numbers, amazing attitude. Also, even though he's a lot of people, a lot of the GMs, they're at the Raptors, they're trying to trade him. They were trying to trade him before the trading deadline, but he still kept that attitude of, you know what, let's just win games and let's stay.
He's playing in a contract year, right? And so him playing well is obviously going to pay off.
Exactly.
Now, at the end of this year, they're going to be stuck in I guess an interesting position where they're going to have 2 point guards because Griffiths Vasquez could start on a lot of teams. He's a very good point guard. But Kyle Lowry has proven himself. A lot of people are saying one of the best point guards in the East right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of a new contract, Mark, do you think Kyle Lowry has put himself in that position where he's deserving of not just a contract of like some, because I think he's going to demand, upwards of $13-14 million. And for a guy who hasn't really put it together for a long time, if you're the Raptors and he's 27, 28 at this point, would you give him the long-term deal that he's going to get with some other team? Like, you're going to have to offer him that. Would you offer him a legit big money long-term contract to keep him?
Well, I mean, from what I know about Ujiri, he tends to be a very shrewd but also very cerebral businessman. I'm going to assume that he's going to offer Lowry a long-term deal, but at lower numbers. I mean, he may offer him a 6-year deal. I mean, I'm not the expert on the business side of basketball, I admit that, but if I'm him, I'm going to try to get him locked in for a long-term time throughout the rest of his prime into his early to mid-30s. Seeing him pretty much in a way as, like you said, the leader on this team on what he's done over this past year, but at lower numbers than you could expect at other places. So let's see if he's going to have some loyalty. If not, there's the potential Tyler Ennis floating out potentially during the NBA draft if he can get that lower pick.
Oh, that'd be interesting. That'd be interesting.
Actually, let's go down a little bit south and talk about the Zen Master coming through. What do you think about it, Phil?
The Zen Master. So Phil Jackson taking over the role as the president of basketball operations for the New York Knickerbockers, much to the delight of many fans out there. Now we'll see. It's going to be a big project, obviously, because there's a lot of players under contract: Amari, Bargnani, Chandler, J.R. Smith, who's another one of those you should have signed him when he's healthy, not healthy, but. Yeah. And he's not going to be coaching. So this is a new role for him. I mean, he's a big name, and he's coming back to New York where he started his playing career, so it's really nice. But, Mota, do you think Phil Jackson is enough to make it happen? Because he was saying some interesting words. He was saying how, before we make a big splash trade-wise or cutting people, whatever, this was a team that won 54 games last season. Yeah. So it does have talent. Now, you did add Bargnani and take away Novak, but I kind of consider that a wash. That shouldn't be enough of a reason for this to happen. Now, when you're looking at this, and you're looking at also Jackson's age, where do you see the turnaround? Like, do you think that they just cut bait, or say we have it and let's try to get some pieces?
I think they're more asking for someone who will have people listen to him. That has influence on players and on the game itself. I don't think it was mainly sort of a let's get better move. It's basically let's get someone that can actually talk some sense to these guys that move. And it's not. I mean, Phil Jackson, Kobe listens to him.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest ego in the NBA listens to Phil Jackson. So I guess they're bringing him in, I think, to maybe have them preach that winner mentality into the Knicks, and also, but I'm still sort of iffy a little bit about it, just because he doesn't have that GM background. He was a coach all the time. He knows the NBA, but he's not. He still has a lot to prove, and especially with a broken Knicks team. I hate to say that, but it is a team that is lacking effort, is lacking attitude, is lacking discipline, is lacking a lot of things. And it starts with the coach. It starts with getting a leader. But I think they're taking it even further. We're getting him as the president of the Knicks and putting him in charge of this team and telling him, okay, save us now because we need to get this guys on track.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting because I've seen a few episodes. They're starting something on Grantland where they're talking about all these fans against the Knicks, and they were screaming out exactly that intensity. There's no drive, no passion for it, and because in terms of talent, they have as much talent as a lot of teams,
Yeah.
but just putting it all together. Now, Mark, maybe I'll throw this one back to you with a little bit of a twist. Now, we're talking about the Knicks. We're talking about getting them back on track. Who do you think gets to kind of a really high level first? The Knicks or their cousins down the road, the Brooklyn Nets? Because they're both kind of interesting stories this year. When you look at both, do you think the Nets take over as the city, as the main talk there, or do you think the Knicks can turn it around to reclaim their crown?
Well, there's a really interesting article by Harvey Ayrton today in I think it's in the New York Times. It basically compares the two franchises and where they're at right now. And the trump card right now is Phil Jackson. The whole nostalgia of him being with those 70 and 73 teams like that, just bringing him back, really excites their fan base. But you got to look at the amazing things they're doing in Brooklyn with the team chemistry and a rookie coach learning on the fly. They're saying in Brooklyn that it's really Jason Kidd behind the scenes pulling this all together. So you have to give kudos to him learning, like I said, learning on the fly how to coach. But the thing is that they have a lot of vets. They have so many salary cap issues, and both teams. Look at the Knicks. If they're in the ninth spot right now, if they don't get in the playoffs, Denver has their lottery pick. Denver could end up with Andrew Wiggins. This is insane. There's so many issues with both these teams. I think, and Harvey Ayrton's piece basically says within the next 1 or 2 years that these teams could have completely different rosters, and I believe that. I think Phil Jackson will blow up the Knicks, and I think a Russian czar may end up doing the same in Brooklyn.
Yep.
Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense. So that's the end of our first quarter here on the Hoops Lounge. So our next segment is the Naismith moment with Mr. Mark, where he runs down some Canadian knowledge for you guys in terms of his expertise. Now today he has a bit of a New York Knicks treat for us. Mark, what do you have on tap?
Yeah, so for the Naismith moment, for those of you new to Hoops Lounge, I look at things from basketball history, basketball culture, and sometimes use a Canadian twist. It's all in honor of Dr. James Naismith, who invented this wonderful game. And so Phil said the word a few times, and I don't even know if he didn't actually know that. I was going to talk about the word Knickerbockers, because someone asked me, what the heck is a Knickerbocker? Because it's one of the strangest, most unique words in pro sports, and no one really knows what it is. Basically, there were a bunch of Dutch settlers in the 1600s in the New York City area, and Knickerbockers were a style of pants rolled up above the knee that the Dutch brought into New York City. It's a very popular thing, and then in the 1859, Washington Irving wrote a very, very popular satirical novel about life in New York City, and it became known as Knickerbocker's History of New York. And there was a character, the main character. His name was Father Knickerbocker, and he became this emblem of New York, an iconic thing for years and years and years. It became part of Broadway plays. It was a beer. It became part of a baseball team. And then when they created what became the Knicks franchise in 1946, a bunch of the key people decided, well, we got to pick a name for our franchise, and they put a bunch of names into hats, and they pulled out Knickerbockers. But the funny thing is, almost every name in the hat was Knickerbockers. So that's how they wanted to name the team. Then they shortened it to the Knicks over the years, but that's where Knickerbockers came from. And a friend of mine on Twitter named Bill, he says I should call them the Bockers, so I'm just going to call them the Bockers from now on. So that's a Naismith moment.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you for that insight. Now it's time for one of my favorite segments on our show, the In the Post, where Mota and I battle it out. But I'll let Mark, who is our resident referee, timekeeper, and all the rest, give you the lowdown.
Yeah, so this is very simple. I got a 24-second shot clock right here, and so Phil and Mota are going to go head-to-head, 6 questions about things from around the basketball world. Very straightforward. They've never seen these questions before, head-to-head against each other, so we'll get started. So we're going to pass the first one over to Mota. Mota, the fact that Andrew Wiggins cannot create his own shot yet, does that put Jabari Parker ahead of him?
No. He's Andrew Wiggins is the most popular player now in the March Madness, even though they talk about Jabari Parker and Joel Embiid, and by the way, Duke lost, so it's also helped. So Andrew Wiggins, regardless, he's gonna go before Jabari Parker just because he's Andrew Wiggins, and that's it.
Phil?
I think, well, you actually hit the nail on the head. I think because of Andrew Wiggins' advanced skill set, I think his skill set actually translates better to the NBA. Him being placed with an advanced point guard who can actually facilitate shots for him, I think his range, his defense, and his 2 strides to the basket are going to enable him to be a top scorer. If he adds that ball handling, he'll be an all-star Paul George-like.
Wow. Still have some time on the shot clock. Wow.
Another Andrew Wiggins question. This one goes to Phil. Joel Embiid versus Andrew Wiggins. Who wins the one-on-one matchup?
Andrew Wiggins every time. I think he would just strip Embiid of the ball absolutely every time. I don't think this is very fair to Embiid. If there's a 2-on-2 where you had a real center and a real other wing player, I would maybe have a conversation, but just because actually this factors into his ball handling, I suppose, I'll still say Wiggins.
Mota?
I will still go with Andrew Wiggins, but it's not going to be that easy for him because Joel Embiid, they compare him a lot to Hakeem Olajuwon, who had amazing handles, the quickest feet, even though he was a big center, and he can use that advantage against Andrew Wiggins. So I think in a one-on-one, it's going to be tough for Wiggins to play against Embiid. And the clutch.
Round 2. Mota, first question in round 2. Could the NBA ever adopt the March Madness playoff format?
Ooh, no. There's not enough. There's not enough time for the NBA to have that long of a month to put it all together. I think for them to make that big of a change, it will need a lot of restructuring for the teams, for the NBA franchises, players, everything. So I don't see it happening.
Phil?
I think there's no way just because the pockets and people are losing salaries. I think people really count on having 4 to 6 games, especially the home games, to sell tickets. I just think there's too much lost revenue in that, although it would be fun as a fan.
Wow, you like playing like the Raptors here, not even using all the entire shot clock. You're just
I don't even need it.
10 seconds. You're playing 10 seconds and you just shoot it. So okay, cool.
Well, this was my question, obviously.
That's true. Phil, next question to you. If you are the 76ers GM, they've lost like 24 straight, by the way, would you want Julius Randle, Aaron Gordon, or Jabari Parker?
Jabari Parker, hands down. To me, it's not even close. Jabari Parker's the far better player. Julius Randle's nice, but he would make sense next to Noel, but I think Parker brings him that scoring that Carter Williams and Noel don't have right now. For sure, Parker.
Mota? I will go with Julius, just because he is a guy that is still growing. If you compare him to last year, his skill set just improved tremendously. Now he's like shooting even more and better than his stats last year when he was in high school. So I will go with Julius Randle just because they need that size.
And how did you pick Aaron Gordon in that? Like as a third? He's so much lower.
Okay, boys.
They compare him to Blake Griffin. They need a big man.
This guy will never be Blake Griffin. Okay, go.
Yeah.
Okay, round 3. With all the attention U.S.-based players, this is to Mota. With all the attention U.S.-based players are getting in the madness, what should the NBA do to promote international potential draftees?
Oh, that they are playing in the NCAA or they're playing?
No, who are not like Exum and stuff.
I think the NBA should just have a sort of a section in their website to talk about the international. They have a small section where they list all their international players and future draftees, but they need more promotion on all their marketing efforts. And I'm just gonna see it because I love that question. We're gonna continue. They need to at least showcase on TV a little bit more EuroLeague and all those efforts. So I give you that point, but we need to say it.
Bill?
I think one of the ways they should do it is by actually having clips of highlight reels during March Madness. So on commercial breaks and such, NBA inspired guys for to look forward, because the NBA, it is a business, and hyping up players who are going to come into the NBA will make you money. So there should be X-Men guys like that, highlights played during March Madness.
Okay, so this is the final question in the post. As you can tell, this is a March Madness theme. This last question will go to Phil first. Where is Tyler Ennis playing next season?
Tyler Ennis, that's really tough. Depends where it drops. I'm weirdly going to say the Lakers. I think, strangely enough, he ends up in LA, and I think it's a good fit.
What?
Mota?
He's gonna end up. Who has the number 5th? I think he will go. He will stay in the New York area. So he's gonna probably end up with getting traded to the Nets or something. Because I heard a lot that Jason Kidd appreciates his game and everything. So I'm probably gonna try to get him.
I'm sure he appreciates Andrew Wiggins' game too, but doesn't mean he's gonna get him.
Oh God. Well, that's in the post.
All right, so as always, lots of fun. So just before we let you guys go, we're just going to go around the table here and say what's happening on everyone's part. Mota, because Marc's been hosting the last ones. Mota, what's coming up with you? I know you have a few specifics 3-on-3 based.
Yes. Last weekend, why I wasn't on the show is because I was in a tournament in Zurich in Switzerland, and we actually won the tournament, the 3-on-3 tournament over there. Not to mention the winning part, but just the atmosphere of the 3-on-3 tournament is amazing. If you get a chance to go to a tournament, go and see it, because it's real guys. It's not your average superstar who's playing there. It's just random guys that love basketball. They play it every weekend after work, after practice, after studying, and they're just passionate about it. They travel to play, and you can feel the atmosphere in the tournament of bringing this entire basketball community all together, and it was just a great vibe for the entire weekend. And not to mention meeting Vlade Divac, who is probably I would say probably the nicest guy that I've ever seen in my life. He would shake your hand and ask you how you are and all of that. He's a genuine nice person. He loves basketball. He loves 3-on-3. He wants to promote the game. He wants to promote actually third world countries where they are. He's the global basketball ambassador. It was just an amazing weekend, and I wrote an article about it. If you guys haven't checked it out, check it out on hoopslounge.com. It's called Globetrotting, and it was just a phenomenal weekend. On the other side, also, FIBA is making a little bit of changes in their competition format, where it's going to attract a lot more NBA players into their World Championships and all of that. So that's also kind of interesting, because they're trying to unite all the stakeholders of basketball around the world and putting them under one hub for FIBA. So FIBA's vision for the next 20 years is to make the basketball community the loudest community in the world, and it's starting now. It started last weekend, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen next.
Very nice. And Mr. Marc, what are you looking forward to this week?
Well, first, I got to give props to Mota for pulling the Willis Reed today. He's got some back spasms from playing hoop last weekend, and then still showed up to play. So props to you for that. So obviously, we're full on into March Madness right now. We've got our bracket contest sponsored by Pure Hoop, who are an amazing T-shirt and graphic design company. They're at purehoop.bigcartel.com. All their info is on our website and on our Facebook page. Anyway, so I'll give you an update from day 3. We've got Christopher Walder, who's from Bleacher Report, in first place. We've got 21 people in our contest this year, and Peyton, with Peyton's perfect bracket, is not exactly perfect anymore, in second. And then we have a log jam of people, including Phil, in third place. And our defending champion, Jimmy Zuberis, is in 9th. He's not doing so well. And I am in 14th place myself, but I still have all of my Elite 8 teams left, so I am not losing any sleep. So lots of great action going on there. We'll be covering lots of March Madness throughout the coming weeks, and as the NBA slowly rolls towards, we'll have all types of new stuff. So just check us out on hoopslounge.com and facebook.com. Tons of basketball coverage all over the place, and it's a great time of year for basketball fans.
Very nice. And myself, I'm going to be going head first, as always, my Off the Wires every Wednesday. We're bringing the top 5 articles of that week to get your basketball IQ rising up. And on top of that, I'll be doing a lot of editing and a lot of work on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't checked that out, YouTube/HoopsLounge, we've created a whole lot of different playlists, and we'll be working on some funnel intro segments and such, so you can integrate our Hoops Lounge content into your coffee breaks and such more and more. So look forward to some updates there. And if, as always, if there's anything you guys want to hear from us, you can hit us up on any of our social media handles, being it Twitter, Facebook, or all the rest. Just go to hoopslounge.com, contributors, and if you want to reach out to myself, Mark, Mota, or anyone in between, reach out to them there, and we'd be happy to hear from you. So thank you, guys, for another awesome show. We'll catch you again for the Hoops Lounge segment next week with more topics, more discussion, and more blow-by-blows in the posts and getting your IQ on with the Naismith moment. So from myself, Mark, and Mota, I want to say thanks, and we'll join you next time in the lounge.
See ya.